Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about The Ultimates issue 10 by Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri and Federico Blee. The Ultimates mission to save the world continues as Jim Hammond takes center stage this issue as we open with the Human Torch killing Hitler back during World War II. The story of Hitler killing himself being a cover story developed by the Allies, since if the Soviets ever found out of Jim's illegal deployment overseas, another war would break out. I really like how Camp gets right into Jim's character here, and it's done in a really cool way where he's asked how killing Hitler felt, how he felt in that moment, and we learn that Jim is someone who likes to reminisce a little bit. He has certain memories he likes to keep where, because he's an android, his mind is always overriding the last thing he knows, or like he has to kind of purge his memory of older memories to free up space. But of all the memories he's had, be it, him getting the Medal of Honor, remembering his creator, Dr. Horton, killing Hitler is the memory he keeps fresh in his mind in, as he puts it, in full color, higher definition. That's something he really wants to keep a hold of. And I really like that idea, this android whose just sole purpose is killing Nazis, and he got to kill the leader of the Nazi party. That's definitely something you would want to remember over and over again. It's like his drive going forward, to rid the world of these fascist, evil people, which the Ultimate Universe is filled with. Jim's reminiscing about the good old days of killing Nazis is put on hold as the team begin their mission, which is to infiltrate Castletown, a stronghold owned by the militia called the Red Skulls, neo-Nazi group inspired by the original Red Skull, but who are using the iconography and tactics of Frank Castle, serial killer vigilante from the 1970s whom led to the infamous Summer of Frank. Now this is some really awesome world building that melds some real world events like the Son of Sam killings in New York in the 1970s with stuff in the comics we've seen where Frank becomes a vigilante in the wake of his family's death. Although that's not mentioned, he's mentioned as being a New York City police officer who just kind of went rogue one day. We did see Frank doing a bit of this earlier on in the issue as well, but I do hope we actually go back and see what Frank was up to as well. On top of that neat connection, the obvious one is the Nazis repurposing Punisher iconography, which we are seeing currently in Daredevil Born Again, with corrupt cops taking Frank's symbol, committing crimes under it, thinking that they are doing the right thing. We also see it in real life where cops use that symbol all the time, military people use the symbol, and there's also dickheads who think that Frank would hate people like minorities or the LGBTQ community and use that symbol as a fear tactic against them. Hell, we even saw when this issue started coming out and people saw Captain America, the guy whose first comic issue is him on the cover punching a Nazi, punching Hitler, thinking that he shouldn't be saying they should be killing Nazis. It's just insane that people think that that's a bad thing to kill Nazis. It's not a bad thing at all. The Ultimates breach the wall to take on Grand Skull, the leader of the National Red Skull movement in America. An interesting thing about this version of the Ultimates team is how reserved it seems this time round, being it's led by Captain America and not Iron Lad. Like we saw what Iron Lad leading the team was like when they went to attack Hulk and his family, where they kind of charged in guns blazing, because obviously it's Tony Stark leading the team and he is all about that life of just no questions asked, just, fight first, questions later. But now with Cap and I guess Human Torch leading the team, they are a bit more reserved. They're more like a military unit, stealthily entering the base and taking out the guards and whatnot. Now Tony, meanwhile, we actually saw at the end of the last issue awaken from his time in the Iron Lung, and we see he's undergoing surgery on his spine here without any anesthesia, kept conscious by the Immortus engine as it happens, and he's there awake and he needs to keep his mind on something, which is why he wants to sort of be part of this mission going ahead, and he's kind of like looking over the cameras. And I love that Steve immediately knows this is him trying to worm his way into a leadership position and try and take over the team and command them from afar. And Steve doesn't want anything to do with that and just reminds him that he is in charge of the team as they make their move, taking down Castletown's guards. Now there is some more really great use of the team powers here, as well as Wasp flies into a Nazi's head and basically melts their inner ear and brains with her energy weapons. Ant-Man meanwhile tries to do the same, but thanks to Hank being thrown off by the change in perspective, he ends up actually throwing up in his helmet and just kind of panicking a little bit, hitting the guy's inner ear over and over until he just dies. I really like what they are still doing with Hank, where he is just a guy who's kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool here and kind of just doubts himself and those around him and just doesn't want this life for himself. He's kind of representing, the normal guy, us reading this book, where if we were thrown into this sort of situation, I'm sure pretty much all of us would have this exact same reaction. The Human Torch also provides some commentary about the team here as he sees them in action, confirming things we kind of already know, like Janet is calm and collected under fire while Hank is second guessing everything, and it's probably going to lead to him getting killed, which maybe is a little bit of foreshadowing. I could definitely see Hank being the weakest link of the team and ending up getting killed for maybe some shock value. We also see that Hawkeye never does second guess themselves and actually acts on instinct and is not scared to actually kill someone, especially if it's a Nazi. Tony meanwhile doesn't like that they are hitting Castletown, as it has nothing to do with the Maker or the Council and is kind of taking their resources away from getting ready for dealing with his return, but Steve doesn't care for Tony's concerns and keeps on pushing, as Nazis are always a priority, and he has information that connects the Red Skulls to Hand, shadowy organization led by Nick Fury and the Cabal. The team soon push into Castle Alpha 1, where the Human Torch clears their way into the building. Now, Jim is really Cap's, backup here. He's his hype man, more or less. He's all about the killing Nazi life, and he's there to back up his oldest friend and brother, more or less. They shared foxholes together. They were in all through World War II together, so they have a better connection than really anyone else on the team. So I like that he's there to back up his friend, and the team's priority needs to be killing Nazis because it's the right thing to do. The team make their way into the base and find some truly horrific shit here, like the old friend of theirs, Namor, who has been mounted on the wall of the Grand Skull's office. The villain makes his grand entrance as Jim is distracted by his dead friend hanging on the wall, but he does run scans on Grand Skull, unable to identify who is under the mask, knowing that they are at least 73 years old. Jim is enraged at what the villain has done to Namor, but that doesn't stop Grand Skull from telling the team how Namor's death wasn't by his hand or, some sort of, underhanded deal, seemingly not from the Maker, but it was actually a political one, and he was overthrown by his own people and killed. His body then became a sort of holy site or holy relic, where it was a pilgrimage for the Atlanteans, for the oppressed Atlanteans to come and pray to him. Thanks to this, the new king decided to exile Namor, or at least his corpse, which would not decay or break down, with many thinking that it's because even the ocean's microorganisms recognized him as its rightful king and decided not to, break him down like they do a normal body. Now, this is a really cool way to utilize Namor even in death. He's not going to be here as an actual character. We might get some flashbacks with him, his time in the Invaders, but I like that even in death, his body is being used as sort of a symbol for the oppressed, and we see an evolution of that where certain symbols can be turned into things fascists often use. We see that in real life with the Nazi swastika being stolen from other cultures like the Hindu culture, where that symbol still resides in many parts of its religious practices. And we're seeing that here where Red Skull has taken Namor's body and taken what it meant to his people and skewed it into this sort of laughing stock for his people. He talks about how his people would look at this dead fish man who can't decay and just laugh. While the Grand Skull continues talking, Jim continues to determine who this man is, learning that his voice is actually being enhanced in some way that makes listeners open to suggestion, effectively giving him manufactured charisma. Human Torch has enough of the fascist's words and leads the charge against him, clearing the room good old days as Cap runs after the escaping Grand Skull, who does the whole "we aren't so different, you and I" thing trope that we often see even between Captain America and the Red Skull. The Red Skull thinks that the Ultimates are very similar to how Red Skulls operate, how they inspire others and how they use violence and are seen as terrorist groups. And of course that's not the case, being that the Red Skulls are a group of racist murderers, but Skull fully believes that they are cut from the same cloth, wanting to even show Steve one of their true believers in that of John Walker, who 6 months prior was sent a box from Tony Stark with a message and the super soldier serum in it, in the hopes that he would become a hero. But of course, the villains utilized that immediately against the heroes. Now I really hope with Cap learning this comes back round and creates some sort of drama or tension between Tony and Steve, because what the fuck is Tony doing sending super soldier serum to John Walker of all people? Surely he would have seen this man who, for all intents and purposes, is an unstable, violent maniac, and thought, now maybe I don't send him the super soldier serum. Makes me wonder who else got powers that shouldn't have, since we had seen obviously John here, and then the Shocker in the Spider-Man book wasn't meant to get the gloves either. Hawkeye wasn't meant to get the bow and arrow and the costume either. There was meant to actually be a Clint Barton who didn't end up taking the powers either. So like, who else is out there running around with Tony's gifts that he just like sent out into the world? Like most iterations of John Walker though, this guy doesn't last that long, as the Human Torch immolates his face, killing the man instantly. With his heavy hitter down and out, Grand Skull is left at the mercy of Captain America, who manages to smash apart his mask. This lets Tony gain access to the Skull's mind, revealing to the villain that he has scrubbed all known Red Skull content off the internet, taken down all his social media platforms and platforms he owns, and has taken every bit of money he has ever had. Grand Skull won't let him have his cake and eat it though, as he mocks Captain America before teleporting away, telling Steve he's going to see him again very soon. And this is something that actually shakes Captain America up pretty badly, and he can't really understand why, or doesn't reveal why, at least not yet. We do actually find out why in just a little while. With the villain in the wind, the team see to Namor's body and give it back to the ocean, hoping that it will continue to inspire many a revolution, even in death. Back on the station, Jim goes through his memories again, finding himself disturbed and worried about his friend Steve, who hasn't spoken or slept since Namor's funeral. Thanks to his emotional upgrades though, he begins to wonder why he and Steve are both disturbed about what they saw with the Grand Skull, playing events back in his mind as he begins to realize that he found something familiar with Grand Skull. His systems soon find a voice match, and as Steve also figures it out, Human Torch learns that the Grand Skull is their old friend and Invader's teammate, Bucky Barnes. Now this is a really cool reveal. The kid who at one point helped represent America and, you know, the all-round good guy, you know, Captain America's sidekick, has become the thing he fought so hard to defeat all those years ago. I have to imagine it might be similar to the Winter Soldier origin, maybe he was brainwashed or something, but I would really like it if that's not the case at all, and this is just what Bucky was destined to be. Like, maybe he became jaded in everything that he and Captain America were doing. Maybe Steve just couldn't see that at the time, and he couldn't see the path his young friend was going down, and he ended up being, you know, put in the ice before he could do anything really about it. And maybe Bucky, you know, was much like we see in real life, you know, brainwashed by all of this type of media and all this stuff. Maybe the Maker is even involved. Maybe he's made Bucky into this in order to sow chaos into the world and drive more people to his rule and to the Council's rule. I can't wait to find out what exactly happened with Bucky here and get to kind of do a redux of the Winter Soldier with Captain America fighting his old friend. The Ultimates issue 10 was another banger issue, touching on very many topical issues with the introduction of the Red Skulls and their corner of the Ultimates universe. Setting this in the POV of Jim Hammond, the Human Torch, a being whose sole purpose was to kill the Nazis, and explore how the more things change, the more things stay the same, is so good. And everything Dennis Camp has done with these older characters being thrust into a chaotic and violent present, it's been a lot of fun. And with the final reveal setting up some really cool Captain America-centric future stories, I can't wait to see what he and his teams have in store for us as the time continues to tick down. Maker's return. We have 8 months left, and can't wait to see what he does in those 8 months. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.